Okay, hi ladies. Thank you for being here today. Before we begin, I want to remind us of our intention of our group consultation. The goal is to cultivate confidence and curiosity while supporting each other in a safe and honest learning environment. I'm going to review some of our agreements, which is maintaining confidentiality and approach each other with curiosity, avoid giving advice, ask open questions, and be present and respectful. So before we begin our consultation, I want to do a check-in with you guys. If you guys want to share something that you are grateful for this week, I can start. I'm grateful for my daughter who was out in Spain for 9 days. And I'm so grateful that she had such an amazing time and that she came back, safely. Who would like to go next?
Happy to go. I feel very grateful for uh two things right now. One is that it's actually sunny out, and I'm very, very grateful for the sunshine. I feel like at a cellular level, I need to like soak it up a bit. And I'm also really grateful for the community I live in, and I know that it has been challenging to me at times, but I recognize that people show up for each other when they need them. So I feel grateful for that.
I can go. I am grateful. So my son came home from college for the week. He has spring break this week, so he'll be home this week, and then my daughter comes home next week. So
And I am grateful for the little bit of contact I had with my son today. Just a little check-in to make sure he's okay. And he says he's okay. So hopefully we'll have something longer soon, but it was nice just having that little check-in.
Thank you, everyone. So today we will move through the consultation process, which include best hopes, curiosity inquiry, reflecting mapping, empowerment, and affirmations, and a debrief and closing. My role as a facilitator is to guide you through the process and help us move through each stage. Okay, I would like to invite Jamie, who's the presenter, to share with us her best hope for this consultation.
I think I would have to say that my best hope is that you can help me work through thinking, well, bet- you'll understand the dilemma that I have once I get into it, but my best hope is that you can kind of help me work through the thinking process of the difficulties that I'm kind of looking at right now. Um, Not necessarily ethical dilemmas, but could potentially be. Um, and also, it's kind of a systemic, uh, like a systemic kind of issue. So, um, not anything that can be solved today by any means anyway. So my best hope is that you all can help me not feel so crazy for the way that I feel about this all.
So, can you please share a brief overview of your challenge to the group?
Yeah. So, um, as you guys know, I am doing my practicum employment based. So it's where I work. It's where, I'm doing the same things. I mean, additional things too, but I'm doing the same things day to day that I would normally do. And it's a social services agency. So in my current role, I'm a caseworker. But I have worked in a number of roles at social services, from all the way down from being an account clerk typist, to being what we call in our county a social welfare examiner, which are the benefits determine they determine like benefits like HEAP, SNAP, TA, Medicaid, things like that. And I worked in all of those departments except for Medicaid. Um, and then I was an employment specialist for a hot minute, and then I became a preventive caseworker. So I've built quite a bit of knowledge about the agency and like how things are done. Um, so it's been helpful in helping my clients that I'm working with now. Um, but it's also kind of been a point of contention for me because I feel like I should have more loyalty, I guess is the best word, to like my agency. But I've been really upset by some things that like I've discovered, and I'm like kind of torn in between like that loyalty to my agency and advocating for my clients. Um, so in the system where they're determining benefits, there is an extreme lack of trauma-informed anything. It's just rush them through. They tend to be very rude. We've even had service providers say that they're very rude at the desk when people come in. I've seen it personally and reported it. And it's usually we get the excuse, oh, they're new, they don't know. And I'm just like, I mean, yeah, you're new, you might not know your job, but you should know to be nice to people. Like they're here because they need help. Like you don't need to be nasty. So there's that. There's like a severe lack of trauma-informed care in any point of the delivery. They're very quick to like close or deny cases, even when they know that like we're working with them. And likely they're going to be back tomorrow because we're going to be suggesting that they start over because it's if it's something that they actually really need. Um, but then I also try to be fair because they do have severe turnover. It's a very busy, very like it can be very frustrating because, you deal with people that are like you feel like they're just asking asinine questions and you just can't get any work done either. So there's a lot of turnover. It's like an entry level job, but it's very hard. There's a lot to learn. I remember when I started, they were like, don't expect to really understand anything in this job for like 2 years. Like, you probably won't be good at this for a year or two. Um, so people just don't stay. And then you get somebody new and it's like rinse and repeat. They had told us, like, I don't know how many times I heard when I was down there, like, oh, the light's at the end of the tunnel. We've filled all of these spots and, the end's in sight. And the end was never in sight. I finally got to the point where I told the director, I said, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's a train. Like, it's awful. So I do see that side of it. But with all of those issues in that department, we have found, I mean, and there are 5 preventive workers. So we have found between the 5 of us that there's a lot of mistakes, a lot of mistakes. Um, and it's very hard for the clients to get a hold of their workers. Like we hear all the time, like we left messages, they don't call us back, or we get this like AI robot thing that answers the phone initially, and we get looped through all of these things until we get frustrated and give up. Um, so there's all of that. Um, but just as an example, I recently had a client that had been homeless. She did all of the things that she needed to do to be in compliance with that program. She applied for cash assistance. She got all of her paperwork done. She ended up very luckily being able to be placed in one of our transitional um, kind of apartment complexes that's run by one of our community agencies. She asked that her rent be paid directly. She also had a newborn. So she had SNAP open initially. She had applied for cash because that was part of the temporary housing solution. They told her that she couldn't get benefits for the baby until she produced a birth certificate and a social security card For cash assistance, that is correct. For SNAP, that is absolutely not even close to being true. They need to have a social security number. Um, so that was in November that she was homeless and had come in and done all the application things. In November, which I found out later, those things had been turned in. So she had two cases living separately, one for cash assistance, one for SNAP, which she already had open. Um, then, because they hadn't requested something for the cash, they added the baby to the cash case, but not the SNAP case. And the addresses were wrong. I noticed that in there. So a little caveat is that I still have access to all of those systems. So I can actually go in and I can see if changes were made, what benefits they're getting, if they put in applications, um, pretty much all of that stuff, what they've been denied for, um, any of those kind of things. And honestly, we weren't really sure if I was supposed to. Typically, when you move from one position to another, um, you lose access to those things, or at least to some of those things. Um, so I was able to see that the addresses weren't changed. That was like one little thing. Um, so I had emailed the worker and I just said, "Hey, this is not the correct address," which they should have known because they were paying for her to go to the housing because she was on cash assistance. They were restricting the rent, but then the next problem came in where the client called all in a tizzy because the landlord was there saying that they hadn't received rent in the last 2 months. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm going to be evicted. They didn't get my money." And I was just like, "Okay, well, let me take a look." And I looked, and the rent money was being restricted, but nobody had ever written any pay lines for it to be paid to anybody. So it had just been sitting and wasn't going to the landlord. So then again, I emailed the worker and said, "Hey, she's saying this. I looked, there's no pay lines. Can you do that?" And she's like, "Well, I'm going to have to talk to my supervisor. I don't really know what to do about it." Okay, that's fine. Just try to get it figured out because she's panicking. And then I never heard anything else. So I ended up having to email his supervisor about it. So eventually that was taken care of. Um, then the third mistake was she called because her benefit card stopped working. She had gone to the grocery store, which she has to walk. She doesn't have transportation, and she has a toddler and an infant. She had walked to the grocery store and her benefit card was declined. And she was like, "Do you know why my card was declined?" So I looked, and sure enough, the card had expired. And I got looking a little more, and it looked like it was a temporary card. And temporary cards are only good for 90 days. So I said, "Well, was it a temporary card?" She says, "Yeah, I had asked them to mail my permanent card to my mom's address because I was homeless at the time. And she never got it. I never got it. And then I kind of forgot about it. And when I looked, it was sent to an old address that she hadn't lived at in a very long time, since before she was homeless. And like the more digging I did, the more frustrated I got because the more I dug, the more I found wrong. Um, so they never updated the addresses like we had asked a month or more prior. And then when I said, "Well, why is the baby still not on the SNAP case? If anything, it should have been the other way around." And they're like, "Oh, well, we can add her for February." Okay, okay, well, fine, add her for February. But then I got looking and I'm like, "You guys received her birth certificate and social security card back in November. She should have been added to these cases back in December. Now they're owed that money. Like somebody needs to fix this." And it became like I was being this bully. Like we actually ended up getting not in trouble for it, but kind of like hand slapped because now we're not allowed to directly contact any of the workers. We have to contact the supervisors, which we stopped doing that because the workers were getting mad that we were going to their supervisors like we were trying to do something behind their back. Um, so I was so frustrated. Like this was like 6, 7, 8 mistakes for this one client. One client. And when they can't talk to a worker or the workers don't know necessarily what they're doing, Like they're at the mercy of whatever it is that they're told or whatever piece of paper they get in the mail. And I'm like, if there's this many errors on one case, I hate to see what the errors look like on this entire caseload. Like this is crazy. And I finally got to the point where with this one where I went to the supervisor's supervisor when things still weren't being fixed. And I said, look, if this isn't fixed by next week when the service provider goes out there to take her to get groceries again, I said, I'm going to advise her to file for a fair hearing because this is ridiculous. Like, there should not be this problem. Not to mention that I had literally walked them through exactly what needed to be done. And granted, don't get me wrong, a lot of them are new. They don't know I work down there. They don't know that they used to call me the machine when I worked down there. A lot of new people would be like, well, why is Jamie's work always done? Like nobody else's work is ever done. And they're like, don't compare yourself to her. She's a machine. So, I mean, I get it. I'm very good at pulling at policy for those things. There's lots of things that change. There's lots of rules, and no one, no cases are the same. There's always going to be some little caveat that's different. It's going to be hard to learn. But my struggle is that I feel like I shouldn't have to be doing that. I'm very grateful that I'm able to see those things so that I can advocate for the clients that I have. And just to clarify, my supervisor did, when we kind of got in trouble for it, she did say, like, do you know that Jamie has access to these systems? And in the long run, most of them were like, yes. And we're actually grateful for that because then, like, she can catch those things. But I'm like, that's not my job. That's like supervisor A, supervisor B, supervisor C's job. Um, but I just feel like the whole system is just so split. Like we talk about other agencies operating in silos apart from each other, but now we're dealing with working in silos within the same flippin' agency. And it's just so disheartening and frustrating. And I just feel like, on one hand, I should be glad that I can not necessarily fix the things, but at least see the things that might need to be fixed. And on the other hand, I'm like, these people just need to learn how to do their jobs. Like, and I hate to do that because I work there. Like, that's my agency. So I just feel like I don't really know what to do about it. Like, I just am very frustrated with the whole process, I guess.
Thank you for sharing that, Jamie. Now we will move to into the curiosity inquiry phase, and we will ask Jamie some curious questions. Do anyone, Donna or Becca, do you guys want to start?
I mean, I have one quick clarifying question. I have lots of thoughts about it, but a clarifying question is if you can just reiterate if you I missed it, what the response of the supervisors was, besides saying, come to us instead of straight to the worker. Did they acknowledge that there's systemic challenges that they're trying to work on, or what was their reaction to your complaint?
No, I don't really think that they ever kind of acknowledged like the larger issues. Like,
Okay.
we've had lots of people say, like, the people are rude, like, they don't care. They're just very quick to like deny or close. Like, we don't consider that there may be other struggles or that they don't have transportation or that they might not have a way to make copies or just little things like that. And I understand that there are deadlines and things like that too. um, but I know when I was down there I would try to kind of work around that, especially if you know that it's somebody that's working with somebody in another agency or another part of the agency. Because usually we're very forthcoming and it's like, well, if you're missing something, please let us know. We'll get it for you. Like, we go to their home, like we can get it. So the part about like the whole kind of like trauma informed piece, the excuse is just always, well, they're new, like maybe they don't know, or they're busy, or they're like, Okay, well, whatever. I guess that's the answer. Um, they did admit that there are issues, and their premise of us going to the supervisor again is so that they can directly address it and hopefully be able to show them the correct ways to do things, which I do hope that happens, but we've tried that before and it didn't really seem to. It just had them mad that we went to the supervisor. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'm wondering if you've had conversations with either your supervisor, and it sounds like you've had at least at once access to the director and shared with them how frustrated you are about all of these things, versus the little, the each incident, but how all of these things for you are
mhm.
really creating a problem for you in doing your job and feeling good about it. And maybe you feel good about what you do, but the agency overall.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to my direct supervisor about it because the day that I got angry and started digging, like the more angry that I got, the more research I was doing. Um, and I was to the point where I was like, if I have to talk to anybody, I am probably going to scream. So I'm going to come talk to you about it so that I can kind of get it out of my system before I go talk to anybody about it. And she was just like, she was more frustrated for me. She doesn't really understand those processes in those departments, but she did end up talking at leadership. So, like, all of the supervisors in the agency kind of get together for something they call leadership. Um, and they did talk about it there, which is where she had asked, like, she did make sure when she brought it up, she did make sure to note that I have access to these things. And we weren't really sure if I was supposed to have access to these things and if it was okay that I still had access to these things. And like ultimately, they were like, yes, we know that she still has access to these things. Um, and we're actually kind of grateful for it because it's kind of helpful for somebody else to be able to see when there are issues. But don't contact the workers directly because, they don't know what they're doing. So you'll just have to come to us and we'll try to teach them, I guess, or try to work through it or show them how to do things properly. Um, so I know I've directly talked to the commissioner about the behavior because I actually had one of the workers verbally attack me when I went to ask them a question. And I did go through the chain at that point in time. I started with her supervisor, and the supervisor deferred to the worker. She just told me, go to the worker, ask for whatever. And when I went to the worker, she like literally started screaming at me and why did she have to give me anything? And I was like, because your supervisor said so. Like, other than that, I don't know. Go talk to your supervisor. That's what she told me to do. And I had gone to the commissioner and also her supervisor's supervisor and to kind of report it. And actually, my supervisor was like, I think you should report it to HR. But I was like, I don't want it to be a big deal. Like, I don't necessarily want her fired or whatever. But like, if you're going to talk to me like that when I'm just asking you something simple, like, how are you treating clients when they're asking you way more difficult things or maybe being a little not so nice themselves? Because we all know when people are dealing with trauma, they're not always thinking about how they might come across. They're focused on what they need at that point in time. Um, and sometimes it can be hard to be kind to people that are not being kind to you. But I had let them know that I said, if she ever speaks to me like that again, I'm not asking you. I'm going right to HR because that's crazy. Um, and what was I told? Oh, she's new. Okay.
Wow.
So, yeah.
May I ask one more
Um,
question?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
yes,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Celeste. Um, do you picture yourself down the line wanting to step into a supervisor role in this kind of thing? Or is it that if you had pictured that, you're wondering if this is the kind of agency you would want to be in?
That's a very good question. So I actually really like the work that I do. And I actually really enjoyed the work that I did when I was a social welfare examiner. Um, I actually think that job was harder, believe it or not. Um, I think I've already said that I don't think I want to be like a preventive or CPS supervisor. Like that's like technically the next step up. Um, but I would consider being like a deputy commissioner or commissioner because I think there needs to be somebody in charge that can say, like, we need to have these, not even goals. I can't even really think of what the right word is, but everybody needs to be on the same page. Like, we need to know what all of these other departments do and how they work together. And I've said that since I've been there because I would apply for all kinds of different jobs within DSS. And our old commissioner, who was horrid, um, she would always say, "Oh, you again. Why are you applying for this? You just applied for this last week." And I was like, because I want to know how everything in this agency works and how they work together. And I don't care if it's in child support or HEAP or services. Like, I don't care. I want to know how they all work together. Because if you don't, then you don't know why somebody else is asking you what they're asking you, or why it's important, or why they need that piece of paper, or why something appears the way it does in a computer system. So I think in that kind of role, you would be able to have some control over how that works or how the rules are or what you're trained in other than, what comes down from OCFS or OTDA. Because I don't think that any of those other programs are required to do anything with trauma informed.
I want to ask you a question, Jamie. I know it's a lot, it's so much, and I
Yeah,
just
there's a
want
lot
to
of
know.
parts. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all right. This is great. I think this is great. I just want to know, like, about the situation. What is more challenging for you?
I, I think what bothers me the most is that I don't feel confident that people are doing their jobs correctly, and it leaves these vulnerable people, you know, at their mercy. It's just whatever they say because they don't know. And I don't really know what the solution to that is because, as I said earlier, the that job is very hard to learn. There's so many different systems, and like you have to learn all of the ins and outs of all of the computing. And, it's not like you just type in a couple things and push a button and it's like, oh, yep, you're eligible. No, there's all kinds of things, all little pieces. But I think the thing I struggle with the most is that because people either aren't trained or like I don't know if people are if like they're just too busy to like train properly or if it's just the people that come in for those jobs because they're considered entry level that they just don't really care enough to care, I guess is the best way to say it. Like it's just like, oh, we got to check this off, done. Got to check this off, done. Like we don't have time to think about the people as a whole. So I think that's my biggest challenge is that people in need are at the mercy of whatever it is that they're being told.
Okay.
And people are doing their jobs wrong, which is going to leave them more vulnerable.
Thank
So
you,
I
Jamie.
have another question.
Sure.
Okay. Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure. Go ahead.
So you mentioned, Jamie, how you feel crazy, or it was driving you crazy how you feel. I was just wondering if you could talk to that, speak about that a little bit more. I mean,
Yeah.
clearly you're frustrated, but what's how's the crazy come in?
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that, in that one instance, like I did feel kind of crazy because like it certainly was not my role to go digging through that entire case to find every mistake that that worker had ever made on that case. And when like I literally had everything written down. This was received on this date. This was received on this date. Um, this is in scanning on this date, but it was never stamped. So we don't really even know when it came. Like I literally had like a laundry list of everything that was wrong with this case and had, before I was told I couldn't, had told the worker exactly in explicit detail what needed to be done to be fixed. And then it still wasn't done. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, I literally told you exactly what needs to happen. Like, if I still had, like, quite honestly, I don't know if I pushed a button if it would work or not. I'm like, if I knew that I could push this button with these changes and have it happen, like I was this close to just doing it and see what might happen. So like I'm like, I don't need to do any of this. This isn't my role anymore. This isn't my job. But the angrier I got that the job wasn't done right, the crazier I felt and the more digging that I did. So I think it was just like the overly being overly frustrated. Now we find little errors all the time, not a big deal. You just let somebody know, like, oh, the address is wrong. Can you fix that so that we can make sure they get their recert? Or I saw in your note that it said they didn't turn in such and such a paper. Can you give me a copy and I'll take it out to them? Those are no big deal, but like this one was just so big and so many things. And I had already asked for some of those things to be fixed and they weren't, that I was just like, this is insane. Just do your flipping job. Like, I, yeah. And I was just like, I shouldn't be this angry at somebody, but I'm like, she's not new. Stop saying she's new. She's not new. Stop it.
Yeah.
It's, I guess
Um,
the excuses just seem so kind of asinine to me. Like, you can only say somebody is new for so long. And even especially with the stuff like being kind, like you don't need to not be new to know to be at least remotely kind to somebody that's there for something that they need.
okay. Thank you for all the questions. Now we will move to the reflecting mapping, where Jamie is going to mute herself and she's going to hear us talking. Okay, so now we're going to discuss any patterns or any themes that we notice, and if we can also talk about, do you guys notice any strengths that Jamie has? Where anyone wants to start? I could start first. Um, one of the things that I noticed about her is that she cares, and that she cares a lot, and and she knows how to, she knows how to, she has the experience, she has the knowledge, but also she really wants to help, and she wants this to be done correctly, and she wants the workers to receive the proper training. And it seems like it's a lot because I see that a lot of people rely on her. Like she mentioned that she's not supposed to have access to these systems, but it seems like they want her to have access to it. Will anyone want to go next?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that she cares, and she's also obviously very competent. Um, so I can relate to how other people's not being as quite as competent can be, frustrating, and maybe a little crazy making, why aren't they doing it? It also um, seems like she's really dealing with a lot of systemic issues, like the agency itself, not the trauma, not being trauma informed, as well as, not paying people enough. it seems like that's something also she's hitting up against that, if the agency could pay people well enough, then they could have people stick around and maybe be more invested in their jobs and things like that. Um, as well as it seems like, it just seems like Jamie needs to be the commissioner. It's like, she sees it and she cares and she knows how it should run just based on all of the different positions that she has. And she really cares about the people that it serves. Um, how to navigate all that, I don't, I get the frustration. I don't, there's no easy answer. Um, um, So I think Becca's question about her long-term goals is probably um, really a good thing for her to consider.
I can relate to the frustration, or at least it made me think about things that I have felt frustrated about in my own work and trying to figure out, I guess, a question that comes to mind. I wonder, Jamie, when we come back to a whole group, like what I think that what comes to mind is sort of that like existential question of like, do I want to fix this problem, or do I feel like if I'm not fixing the problem, I'm a cog in the wheel that's part of the problem? And that can make me at least feel very like antsy. Like if I don't do something right now, then I'm complicit in what I see is uh, not to be overly dramatic, an injustice happening because they're like the flaws in the system are gatekeeping in this way that people can't get access to the things that they need in order to be empowered. One of the reasons that I wanted to ask about further aspirations is because I think I kept hearing, and I've heard this when Jamie has spoken, I think throughout the time that we've gotten to know each other and seen things in class, is it seems like you have this really like special balance of pragmatism, curiosity, and like just boots on the ground, let's get it done. And I think when we can think about someone who can sort of think about I want to know all the things. I don't have any issues with working those entry level jobs to understand how it works. But now I also want to make sure other people want to do that. And what I kept thinking about were what are the ways in the short term that Jamie could help inspire motivation in other people to strive for more excellence while also saying, like, she kept also really respecting, like, there are real constraints on people's time, resources, amount that they want to put into this. Like, not everyone's going to want to do this the way I am. And then the last theme that also was sticking out to me is, and I relate to, was sort of the nickname that is both like a blessing and a curse. Like to be like, oh, she's such a machine. Or like I once got a nickname of like, oh yeah, she's like a total bulldog. Like she's just not gonna let go of like the heels until she knows that something got taken care of, which in some ways is a compliment, but in other ways is it can easily turn into being taken for granted or like, oh, she's just gonna fix it. And it can make a person really want to do more. Like to say, like, no, how can someone else do more? It's like a, how can I spread this around, both so I'm not burned out, but also to make it better, like to not just have it stay the same. So yeah, it's a conundrum I think that is not uncommon probably for social workers to find themselves in. I guess if we were talking before, we all were in the IPE forum about like social workers get it done, and then you're like, oh, well, shoot. What if what if other people aren't doing it? How do I motivate that?
And Becca, now that you mention it, like I do relate to what Jamie is going through, like in my own work position. It's like like loving what you do, and then you see that you're often surrounded by people that don't care as much as you do, and it's like it's frustrating also because like we're in a field of social work and we care, and it's like okay, you are here, but they have these attitude and this demeanor that they don't like what they do, and it affects the people that we serve. So I can relate to the frustration and how Jamie, is feeling in this with this situation. Now we're gonna move on to empowerment and affirmations. And Jamie, you can unmute yourself. So I would like for us to share one strength or supported observation for the presenter.
I will start and just say, Jamie, I think I started to say this a little already as you were muted, but I want to say thank you for sharing not only the complicated situation that you find yourself in, but also uh, just giving us insight into what I see as a really inspiring way in which you approach your work. I think that um, I imagine, and this is probably colored by my own experiences, but I imagine that lots of times it gets seen as or written off as you're being critical, or why are you micromanaging, or like you're looking at all of these little tiny pieces when, like, in the big picture, we have tons of constraints and everyone's just doing the best they can do. And what I would say when you're sharing the story is that it sounds to me like you have a huge capacity to affect a great deal of change, whether it's in this organization or in others. If you are able to find ways to continue to share what motivates you, because it's very clear, to me at least, that what motivates you is making sure that people have access to what they need so that they can thrive and grow. And I think that's something that so many people can relate to. And if they realize the impact they were having, and not just write it off as like just casework, so to speak, or just data entry. Um, I see ways that you could have massive impact beyond what you're already having. So keep doing the good work.
I want to add, Jamie. So I want to say that I admire the work that you do, and I know it can be frustrated, but I know you inspire the right people, and you advocate for others, and that is an amazing job that you do. And like seeing so many mistakes, getting frustrated, but I think that for thanks to you, those mistakes were able to be found, and the client was able to, it was resolved, although it has to go to a lot of barriers. But I think that you're amazing, and I admire the work that you do, because not everybody is able to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would agree. I admire your combination of competence and caring. Um, and from the work that you've done, you have a vision for how it should work. Um, and um, I think also you have the capability of implementing that vision. If you ever get to a position, and hopefully you will get to a position where you can implement that, because um, from what I've learned about the DSS workers in my area, from my practicum, um, it's like nobody has any, that they're all similar to what you're describing workers are in your agency. So it sounds like kind of unique in that you've loved what you've done, every part of it. And you've maintained the care of the people and the desire to help people. So to me, that's somebody that needs to be in a leadership position, and so that can infuse the whole rest of the agency.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything you want to share, Jamie, about what you heard that we talk? about you while you were muted?
Yeah, I just want to thank all of you for your very kind words and making me feel a little less nutty about kind of all the situations. Yeah. And I will, like I said, as I was like thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I was like, there's so many moving parts to this. I hope it doesn't take the whole hour just to explain what I'm talking about. Um, but it seems like you guys kind of really grasp what was bugging me about it and the need that I have to like fix it somehow. Um, I mean, I don't think that'll probably happen anytime soon because, like I said, typically when I've brought it up, it's we usually get told that, people are new or you have to give them time or what have you. But I don't know. I, I'm I'm kind of thinking that maybe we can offer to do a little trauma informed kind of informal training with people down there or something along those lines. That might at least be a first step.
So now we're gonna move to the debrief phase. Um, so what are you guys leaving with today? Is there anything that comes to mind that stood out to you today in this consultation process?
I think I keep thinking back to what we were talking about when we were chatting with you, Donna, about like the overwhelm of like being able to start to see all of the different pieces and to say, like, I see what role I play. I see the limitations on my role. Maybe this is starting to see some cool avenues for growth or change, whether it's PD for trauma-informed care, or if it's down the line, you decide that you want to seek out either a training role or a supervisory role of some kind. But I do also think that it reinforces how important it is to find people within our field who can kind of help settle and ground us in like, no, not making it up. I'm not like, I guess kind of like putting out the gaslighting, right? Like the idea that like, don't worry, it'll be fine. When you're like, I'm pretty sure that we just keep doing the same thing. Like we are in the definition of insanity, right? Like we're going around in the same
Mm.
circles doing the same thing. So
It's
in
a
a way, I
train.
guess I,
It's not
pardon?
light. It's a train.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. I mean, I do come back over and over in those moments when it feels overwhelming to like small things with great love, small things with great love, like do what I can with what I can where I am. But I think that it's fair to say, like, what do I do with the big questions? And it is overwhelming. So I'm grateful for opportunities like this to be able to just say I'm not alone in feeling that way.
Yeah. And to me, that also speaks to the need of work at the macro level, that, those things start at the top
Hmm.
and, it gets trickled down. So, definitely, it shows the value of advocating on state level, higher, even higher than that, for policy change so that the work that case managers do is valued and 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 rewarded accordingly. The wages are would entice people to come and stay and be engaged in the work.
I want to add that this activity I think is very useful and also supportive. You know, to be able to share, that or challenges and be able to support each other and be present and be curious. And I think this is so great. And I'm glad I'm here with you guys. And Jamie, what are you living with today? If you want to share with us.
Yeah, I agree with all of you on your what you've said. It's it really is a blessing to have others that can share their challenges as well. It kind of like it kind of just opened your eyes to, what other people struggle with. And I think that it helps me anyway to be able to think about, things from other people's perspectives. So, yeah, this is what irks me, but, this is the issue that Donna had, or that Celeste had, or that Becca had. And, um, this is how we talk through how they might deal with it or why they might be feeling that way or, anything like that. And just being able to see things from another perspective is very helpful in just the thinking process. Um, just to get you thinking about some other things, some other opportunities, and maybe even other problems that might come up later. Maybe we'll be better educated when they do.
Yes. So I want to thank everybody for your curiosity, your support, and your participation today. And I appreciate that space that we have created. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you guys next time.
All right.
Bye.
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 Bye.